Lewis Thompson, talkSPORT MMA, delighted to be joined by Aaron Aby today ahead of his fourth Octagon bout this weekend in Bratislava for Octagon 63. Aaron, how are we doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. I've just touched down in Bratislava. We've literally just got to the hotel. I'm feeling good, weight's good, journey was good. It's been a good camp, and I'm looking forward to having a fight on Saturday night.
Is this the first time you fought in Bratislava?
First time I fought in Bratislava. First time I fought abroad for Octagon. Actually, the last time I was in Bratislava, I was playing football for Wales as a junior, and scored for Slovakia an own goal. So I feel like they owe me one anyway.
And I want to touch on that football side of things first. No, I want a wee bit later on. But first of all, Aaron, I want to just talk to you about your opponent briefly, Zhalgas Zhumagulov from Kazakhstan, a former UFC fighter. So I know I watched another interview that you spoke to someone that you'd watched a bit of him in the past, and you thought he'd been robbed in a couple of fights. So, what have you thought of his style heading into this bout?
Uh, I've mainly just focused on me, to be honest, on tightening some things up. Like I'm at that stage in my career where I'm not gonna like completely change my style or add loads of stuff to my game. It's just about tightening up what I do well. And being able to make it more effective and better on the night. So, like, as for him or whoever's in front of me, I feel like that'll always be the case anyway, where I'm looking to impose my style better than they can impose theirs.
And Aaron, if I'm right in saying you're 34 years of age now, and in terms of camp, obviously you've been in and around MMA for quite a long time since you transitioned from a footballer. And has your sort of preparation camp ever changed, or have you always stuck to the same, code? And are you a guy who likes routine in a sense? Because I actually watched a few of your vlogs on YouTube leading up to this bout, and one of the things that you frequently mention is consistency, and especially with a few of the younger fighters. So, is there something that you've always tried to stick with in the lead up to fights?
For sure, I've been doing camps for 10 years, so they're always evolving and looking to improve. I don't feel like I've hit the age where I need to reduce my training. Become like I know some people have talked about when they get older, they just go to one a day instead of 2 day sessions. But I don't feel like I'm at that stage yet, and it's just again every camp like we'll sit down with my team after and we'll be like, right, how can we make it better? How can we make it better? What's the little things we maybe can do to improve? But yeah, like I said, it's always based around that consistent training and that consistently being in the gym and looking on ways to get better. I feel like that's the foundation of any success, as you've probably watched on the vlogs. Like they're boring because on the Monday you're doing the same thing as you did the Monday before. It's not like you're out there doing different things, but it's just that consistency that leads to success, especially at the top level. Uh, like there's no balance.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, how long do you think you can keep yourself going for in professional MMA?
For me, it's when I stop performing. And at the moment, I'm performing. I'm doing well. I'm improving every fight. I love the game. I love the sport, and I love competing myself. I'm not going to be someone who keeps going when they're not performing at the level they should be. I've got a lot of up and coming fighters and stuff, and who will need my attention in the future. So as soon as it's I'm not able to compete at the level I want to, I'll be able to focus on them a lot more. But for me now, it's just about keep going, keep improving, and staying in the game as long as possible, making sure I look after myself.
Sounds like a very good plan. I wanted to ask you about Octagon MMA, as a promotion itself, because I had a conversation with Pavel Neruda, one of your many bosses, last month or so, and he made a very interesting point about how they can provide up and coming fighters with a really large platform, following on from their Frankfurt event. 60 odd thousand people in a stadium, and it's not something that you would maybe see in the UFC for fighters who are just coming onto the scene. But that's one of the points he made in a sense of how he keeps fighters in his promotion. And I just wanted to ask you, you fought for Cage Warriors, and you've been in and around other places, but how have you found being under the Octagon banner recently?
I've loved it. They have provided a great platform, and just come in there and give like myself and some of the UK fighters the top stage to go out and compete on. I'm keen to stay active. I'm keen to stay active with them, but I feel like what they're doing all over Europe is up there with the UFC for the stage and the show they're putting on, and the events. Like, we were in Germany for the first one I went to, which was abroad for Corey's fight in Cologne, and it was like some of the UFC fights I've been to. It was exactly the same. You couldn't have told the difference, and I feel like they're building that platform, and they've worked hard at it, and it's only growing now. Like that 59,000 show in Frankfurt was unbelievable, and they're giving people like myself the platforms to build on.
Do you thrive in those sort of venues? I mean, I'm just talking personally here, in terms of fighting. Is the fans something that you find yourself that you could play off, and does that actually? Because I'm always interested to know in the mind of a fighter when they're 1-to-1. Obviously you're trying to take each other's head off, but at the same time there's a lot going on around you. So how does that play into your fights and the approach that you kind of take?
I feel like I thrive off the energy of the crowd. I try not to let it like affect my performance in a way where I rush anything, or uh, like get over aggressive maybe in certain situations. But I love like the energy of the crowd. I fought in COVID once with no crowd there, and it just wasn't the same for me. For me, like, the energy and the spectators is a part of it, and I always feel like the love and the passion from people who come and support me. And I'd rather fight in front of 50,000 than fight in front of 1,000 people. I love that, and I feel like I'll hopefully can thrive off that. Where some people maybe they prefer like just to be within themselves. I don't mind having a crowd there. I actually love that, and I feel like that's why again Octagon is great, because of the amount of support, and the fans are crazy. That it's awesome to be on.
And I just want to talk about the UFC very, very briefly. And obviously, Wales have had their fair few representatives recently, and Jack Shore, to name a few. And have you ever had any conversations about a potential move over to the UFC? And is that something that you can see yourself getting into down the line?
I haven't personally, but I know like management teams who have represented me have had something in the past. But for me, like, I just got to focus on what's ahead of me Saturday. I've been in a situation in the past where I've gone into a fight thinking I'll win this, and you're in the UFC, and I've forgot about all the processes in the fight to get me to the stage of actually winning, and it ended up being one of my worst performances. So for me, it's just about focusing on the process, being with Octagon, loving being on the show, performing well, and then when I get in there Saturday, like, I'll be again focusing on the moment, breath, shape, and everything that comes after that. Uh, and that's my goal at the moment.
What does it keeps you motivated, Aaron? Because I mean, you have a pretty remarkable backstory that I want to dive into just after this, and you know, I just want to understand on the surface level, what does it keeps you ticking to keep going in MMA? Is it a family thing? Is it money driven? Is it the thrill of being in the octagon itself?
It's definitely not money driven. uh, I feel like for me, there's a lot of motivating factors. Growing up with CF, I always like use sport to like make me feel healthy. So like when I was growing up, like they'd be like, "Oh, you can't do PE," and I'd be like, "Why?" And they'd be like, "Oh, your lungs." And then I'd be like, "Right, I'm beating everyone at PE now." And then I'd be like, oh, if I'm beating them in 1500, I'm playing well at football, my lungs are doing good. So I've always had that drive, that competing at sport at a high level has motivated me to look after myself and just be normal. And if I think about it as well, growing up doing that and then using mixed martial arts to represent people with cystic fibrosis and that underdog story, like always go on about Rocky, Karate Kid, and feeling myself being one of those people growing up, and for me, like, it just makes me feel alive, like when I'm doing something, because I'm following something that I'm passionate about, and it gives me a purpose, and the purpose to be in this game and compete and be the best I can be, and keep inspiring people are all those motivating factors that keep me going. And that's what I mean when my purpose just becomes maybe selfish, that the fact that I just want to do it just for me, and there's other people who need me more, that maybe be the time to take a step back from it. But for now, like, it's who I am. It's what I do, and I love doing it. I love doing it for me, but also a greater story than just myself, and that's what keeps me going every day. I always like tell a story that, like, when I was coming back from the cancer, for me, I wasn't cured until I competed again. So in my head, even though I had the operation, the chemo and that, and I was all clear, I still had cancer until I was back in there fighting. And then the day after I fought the first time, it was almost like I was healed.
Mm.
That was it for me. So there's loads of motivation factors that inner drive for myself, and then also the greatest story as well.
And that is such a powerful message. And I know you've talked about this quite a lot in recent years. But I just want to ask you about the early days of cystic fibrosis. And I think you were diagnosed at only a couple of weeks after you were born. And I read a story you touched on about PE there, and you had to take part in a disabled PE class, and then you ended up doing the bleep test, beating everyone. And that is a really interesting thing. That is probably one of the main things that drove you and motivated to do something like MMA. But in terms of your life now, and as you're 34, how do you react to not in terms sort of the physical challenges, but in terms of mentally and the noise around you, having cystic fibrosis in this day and age? What is that like to deal with now compared to what it used to be?
Uh, like, when I was born, the life expectancy was 16 for someone living with cystic fibrosis. Now I think it's up near its 50s. I think it was 48 last time I checked. So things are improving for people who were born with cystic fibrosis now than they were back 34 years ago. And I feel like that's due to, like, knowledge, medical treatment, and everything just help build that up. There's days now, because I used to be in the hospital every 6 weeks for checkups. Now I go once a year, and then the other times are just phone calls. And literally, some days I'll be like training. I'll be like, "Oh, they know I'm fine. I'll ring them if I've got a problem." I just feel like I'm. It's become a smaller part of me than it was back then. But also, like, growing up with it, I feel like, and it being this thing I've lived with is almost become my greatest strength in the future. Just having the mental and the physical challenges up along the way to, like, almost train your brain like it's a muscle to get to the these these things now that I'm dealing with in life, or things that I have to go through. I feel like mentally I'm able to cope with most stuff. I would like to say everything, but you never know that. And just having that almost acceptance of that life's not always pretty and easy, and following something that you're passionate about is going to help, and how you can deal with all these problems along the way.
Mm. And just from an outside perspective, I don't think too many people will be fully aware and educated enough to understand what the biggest mental and physical challenges are when you have to live with cystic fibrosis on a daily basis. Can you try sum up what some of those biggest challenges are?
Well, physically, cystic fibrosis affects the lungs and the digestive system with clogging it with thick, sticky mucus. So, like, my lung function will never be the same as uh, someone my age, average lung function. So you have to deal with stuff like that. That you have to go through physically. Obviously, we don't absorb nutrients from food as well as other people, and then I feel like there's different mental challenges for everyone within that, whether they're thinking about maybe not being able to live a normal life. Maybe some adults go through thinking about maybe not having kids, or when they're going to be sick, or what how early they're going to die and stuff. There's all those battles, but they take part in a lot of people's lives anyway. With all the mental challenges, with not cystic fibrosis, and like I said earlier, that's almost like become a strength for me now. The fact that I've gone through all those things and we are where we are now.
I mean, like for an MMA fighter, which is one of the most physically challenging sports, and it's just you in there against one other opponent to be dealing with with issues in your lungs. It's pretty remarkable to get to the stage where you're at now, Aaron. And I just want to touch on your cancer diagnosis as well in 2017, if I'm right in saying stage three testicular cancer, and you were told you had 3 to 6 months to live. Your parents were even told to write your will at one point after the first surgery. And can you just describe to me some of the things that were going through your head during that time, and how you got through the other side?
Everything really goes through your head. Like, I don't want to say you're always positive or you're always sad, or not surviving's going to go through your head. Surviving, like, I used to go through the ups and downs of like locking yourself in a dark room at night, to the fact, right, I'm just going to get out and crack on and go to the gym. Uh, you just go through all the thoughts. Like, I remember even one night I had my last chemo. They were like, we can't do anything else. He needs an op, but we need to get him in surgery. If the cancer comes back during that time, that'll be it. And I remember one night I rung up for my blood results, and they give me the wrong blood results. Told me the cancer had come back. So I remember like being sitting on the kitchen floor with my mum, just like crying, thinking, oh, it was over. And then the next day, rang back up, they give me the wrong results. So I had a night of thinking it was over to going back to. So that you go through all these battles. I used to like talk about it as like almost like sometimes you just need to bite down on your gum shield and take what was ever thrown at you. Other times you could be in control of stuff, like in between operations, getting your lung function and your weight up. You were in control of other things you weren't in control of. You're going through all these challenges and emotions along the way, and almost accepting them because they're going to happen. No matter, like, all the people who are going to go through life are going to have these emotions along the way, but accepting them and then just doing what you can about them and how to move forward. And I used to say, like, all the stuff I'd gone through previously in the past was to get me through this challenge that I was going through now. Uh, and like, some people would be like, oh, maybe after this he'll like relax a little bit, take a little step back. But I feel like all the reasons for the person I was before that got me through that, and I'm still that competitive kid that I was 20 years ago.
So do you think some of the challenges that you had to deal with from a very young age with CF helped you, on a daily basis, to keep the mind in a better place? And because obviously it would have been very easy, to get overcome by what was going on in that time, and to almost let yourself go, and not stay, in the professional MMA world. But do you think that sort of helped you keep going? And like, I'm just trying to really figure out here what was it in you that just really said, right, let's keep going, as you said, bite down in the gum shield, and keep driving forward.
A lot of things like made me keep going, and I feel like growing up, I always believed quitting was wrong. and I still believe quitting was wrong now. So for me, like, I just can't quit, because if I quit, I've like let myself down. Don't get me wrong, there's times I can lose because I've been beaten by a better guy or things are out of my control. But I feel like quitting is in my control. So I just can't quit. Like, because I just believe it to be bad. And I've had that in me since growing up. Like, I remember, like, I would always be like, right, I'm gonna run the furthest on the pitch this game. Right, we're ready. Like in the bleep test, it wasn't me quitting at a certain level. It was the people doing the bleep test pulling me out because I wasn't getting to the lines on time. Because that wasn't me quitting. And next time I try and get to that line quicker. So I just feel like just stuff like that has sculpted who I am now, and where I am now. And obviously I love MMA. It's my passion, and at the moment I'm performing, I'm improving. So like it's just not in me to quit.
And does that love of MMA stem from because it's just you in there? Because I just want to touch on your football career briefly in your youth. Representing Wales at youth level, and obviously that's a team sport, and you've a lot of people around you, and you have to be successful as a team in order to win games. But in the octagon, it's just you in there, and only you have control over what happens in the fight. So would you say that that's something that you sort of fell in love with more compared to the sport of football?
It definitely plays a part. For me, like with football, someone picks you. So it could be a manager's opinion, a coach's opinion, whether you play or not. At the highest level, like sometimes someone can come in and maybe not fancy you for their style of play, and you're on the bench. And then also, like, I would like go and play in the Welsh leagues for a little bit, and sometimes like I'd be like Friday night going to bed early, eating a good breakfast, and then 4 or 5 players turning up like half drunk from the night before, and that would annoy me. And I'd be like, I'm doing everything to make sure we win. But going into fighting, like when you're in there, yeah, you're in control. It's you v someone else. It's that ultimate competitiveness, uh, man v man, like, and who's gonna leave it all on the line and go out there. But you also do have that team around you who help prepare you and get you ready, and you represent them when you go in there, and you've all put the work in, and then it's down to you on the night to execute that plan and represent them and you the best you can. So there's definitely elements of that I get frustrated with football about, if other players maybe weren't giving the same effort as me, uh, or like a coach comes in and you're on the bench for a few weeks. However, like it's not just an individual sport, fighting as well.
It must be a bit annoying these days when you're watching football and you see someone go down from a tackle and they've barely even been touched, and you're sitting there punching someone in the face in the octagon.
Yeah, because again, like in my head, if someone kicked me, like always brought up, get up as fast as possible. Don't show them you're hurt. Because
Mm.
like
It's
another
the
man,
opposite
like,
in football. You have to show
yes,
your heart.
yeah. But even when I played back in the day, if someone kicked me, you get up as quick as possible, and then the next chance you got to put a foot in on them, you would do, because it wouldn't hurt. It would hurt your pride if someone kicked you and you rolled round on the floor pretending you were really hurt, or they'd hurt you. Like it wouldn't look good. So now when I see it, I'm like, where's your pride? Like just get back up, and they haven't hurt you, crack on. So yeah, there's definitely still bits of that when you watch it and you see it now.
Mm. And Aaron, you've obviously represented your country at youth level, and you had a brief stint at Shrewsbury Town, if I'm right in saying, and you rubbed shoulders with the likes of Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale in your youth, Charlie Taylor, I think as well. What has it been like seeing those guys, get older, and obviously you're a similar age to them, and you're seeing them in the news and different footballers like that. What has that been like compared to the experience you had with them?
It's awesome. There was like, you just got to see them who they were as kids, and like even like bits now. Like I did one camp with Gareth Bale, which was a few days, but like people like Aaron Ramsey, Joe Allen, and that, like we played multiple games together, and you can see like bits in them now that were still in them then. Like I talk about Neil Taylor a few times, because he was first to training, last to leave, just doing a little bit of extras, and like he ended up playing in the Premier League, eventually having loads of games, and just because of his work ethic and that, and like you see him, like it's just good to see like those kids come through and like not gamers or anything where they weren't going out, they were like active kids and just like sport playing, and seeing that still in them now is awesome to see when you see them, and you're like, yeah, like they deserve it.
And you said you had a few days with Gareth Bale. Was that for a tournament away somewhere, or what was
Yeah,
that?
that was a Wales camp in Ireland. It was like I think it was maybe 5 days or a week where we took the team over. I actually played for the year above that
So
that
what
that
age would you
one.
have been then?
So it's like in your school year. So I would have probably been like 14 and playing for the 15s or the 16s. And we went away, and yeah, it was like Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Wales in like a tournament for the week.
And I don't think you ever could have imagined that this young boy will end up playing for Real Madrid one day.
No, 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 you couldn't. And funnily enough, we were at PFL a few weeks ago, and I come out the lift, and my old coaches were there, and they were all there arranging the fixtures for this year for the Victory Shield, and I was like, that is mad. Like just come out the PFL lift, a tournament in Glasgow, and they were all there in the same hotel arranging the fixtures for
Mm.
the Victory Shield this year.
It's a very small world, isn't it, Aaron?
Yeah.
Just to finish off, back to the fighting this weekend, and obviously you said you're very focused on yourself, but I know in the combat sports world, predictions aren't really a thing. But what do you think will go down this Saturday in Bratislava?
I think that Zhumagulov is probably my toughest test to date from what he's done in the UFC, what he's done before the UFC. I know he was a champ of a couple of organisations, beat people like Ali Bagyatinov, who went on to fight for the UFC belt. Uh, so I am expecting a tough fight. Some of the things I'm looking to do is push the pace, make him work for everything. And I feel like the longer it goes on, the more it's going to go into my favour. I've just got to be smart with how I push it, when I push it, and doing the right things at the right time. And, I'm looking to take him into deep waters later on in the fight and get the finish. I'm under no illusions. Like, people sit there and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to get him out the bag early, or it's always going to be my fight and stuff." I'm expecting a tough fight, and I know I can win the fight, but I know it's going to be tough to do that. So I'm expecting that on the night, and making sure I get all those processes in place to do that is what I've got to control.
Mm. And last one from myself, Aaron. What is next for Aaron Aby? Should you win on Saturday?
Again, just get the win first, and then see where it goes. Obviously, sometimes, like I said, I've thought about after too many times. So for now, it's focused on this week. Enjoy it. It's going to be awesome. I think there's going to be 15,000 people there. So I'm going to soak it all up, have a good fight, and think about what happens next after it.
Have you many fights left on your current contract?
No, actually, I don't. This is my last one. Under contract. Like I said, I'm not sure. Hopefully, someone else comes my way and they offer something to me. But at the moment, this will be my last one on the contract scheduled. I'm hoping something gets sorted, but again, uh, let's see.
Top man, Aaron. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today, and good luck. Not that you'll need it on Saturday, and I'll be rooting for you. I'm really excited to watch it.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.